You may look at a professional pitcher and wonder, did they always throw hard? Did they have to work at it? It seems like for you to reach your goals, you have to crawl tooth and nail for each velocity bump. Did these professional pitchers have to do all that? Or was it just all God-given talent? Well, I think there's several reasons why professional pitchers throw as hard as they do, but there's two things I want to talk about today, and they are What's good, everybody? It's Perci Garner, former MLB pitcher, and I want to help you become the best pitcher you can be. Or if you're a coach, give you some tips to give to your clients. Morgan, no, I'm joking. Appreciate you being here today, Mo. No, today I just want to, get into the video, not talk too much stuff, but I want to make sure that I do mention, because we got a goal, we trying to get there. But if you're liking the content that I'm making, make sure that in a future video, you tell me if I'm muted. I don't want to go whole stream being muted and then have to redo the whole thing. No, I'm joking. Make sure you like and subscribe so we can grow here and reach more people. Share with your friends. And also, I have a pitching Discord. If you want to join, Mo, join the Discord. And we talk pitching and baseball there, amongst other things. I'm growing it as much as I can just to have my little community. I love Discord. It's the best. And I would appreciate it if you joined. With all that out the way, today we're talking velocity. And someone left a comment on my last video talking about, they wanted me to share my velocity journey, I guess you can call it. But before I do that, I just want to talk about two things. I was someone who kind of was always, gifted with a strong arm, and I always was amongst the top in velocity at all my age groups. I didn't have like a Trevor Bauer, experience where I had to, take weighted balls and practice 2 hours after baseball practice. But I did have a different bringing up. I threw a lot of rocks, broke a lot of windows. I was always playing football, and I was throwing everything as a kid. And I think that had something to do with it. So I might not have been on Trevor Bauer's, program, but I was doing a lot of throwing growing up, and I think that contributed to like, fun fact, we have a river where I grew up, and we have the water treatment plant across the river from where I grew up, and every day I would go and throw rocks across the river and try to hit the water treatment plant. So if you have no other options, you might get in a little trouble, but take a risk for that arm strength. But without further ado, let's get into it. So yeah, good genetics are a good thing, but and another like kind of disclaimer, you can ask Mo in here. I was never known for for having great command. The command of my pitches was not consistent growing up. Once I got to college, it got better, but then once I got to professional levels, it kind of went downhill again. So keep this all in mind, because I have a lot of people telling me that, hey, take some off to throw a strike. I used to do that, and I'm not a big fan of that. But I understand if someone's telling you that because they're trying to win games and they want you throwing strikes. But in the long run, it worked out for me to learn how to command pitches while throwing hard. So the things I want to talk about today, there's two things. And one is what I learned when I came to the Indians organization. I was with the Phillies for 5 years, and they focused on, since I was having command issues, they focused on mechanics and taking some off a little bit to make sure I was throwing strikes, and it was all about throwing strikes, which obviously is what you want to do. But Mo's had the best command on the team. He's lying. But the thing I want you to understand is you're only going to get better. If you think about it, if you kind of compare this to other sports, you don't shoot slower in basketball to get better at your shot. All right. You may go shorter and take shorter shots and work on fundamentals of your release, but you don't alter the speed or effort level of certain drills to get better, especially a pitching drill, because pitching, you want to get better at repeating the same thing over and over. If you're varying speeds, varying effort levels, I think it's going to be quite difficult. Now, we can go down a whole nother lane if we want to talk about ways to, throw a bullpen or conserve your arm when you're not pitching. You can throw a short box and flat grounds and stuff like that. But I mean, when you're pitching, throwing a bullpen or in the game, I think it's counterintuitive to lay off the gas to get a strike across. But I understand where a lot of these coaches are coming from. But I think having the intent to throw hard is the one thing you have to do. You have to realize that if you're in your mind and you're trying to do certain things, if you're trying to sprint and you're telling your body that I want to run fast but I want to chill, it's not going to work. I think the same thing goes for throwing. When you're throwing, for me with the Phillies, I lulled into this kind of pattern of, all right, I got to make sure maybe I'm at 80, 85%, but as long as I'm throwing strikes, we'll be effective. But there was a game, and I'm going to tell you another quick story. I really loved watching Jose Fernandez, rest in peace. Really loved watching Jose Fernandez when I was in the minor leagues, played against him a couple times, and I had MLB TV once he got to the bigs and I was still stuck in the minor leagues. What I did was I would just watch his outings. I would skip the hitting because I didn't care. I just wanted to watch his outings. And that dude was coming. He was not laying off his pitches, whether he's throwing changeups, fastballs, or curveballs. Those were all coming at you full speed. And what I learned is when you're throwing hard and you're having the intent to throw, all your pitches are better. Your curveball's better. If you're slowing down in your curveball, your changeup, first of all, you're going to tip your pitches to the hitter. They're going to know, hey, he always slows down on these pitches. But second of all, the spin, the action, the break is not going to be as good. And I learned that the hard way. For an example, I had an outing against the Portland Sea Dogs in AA. And I was facing Travis Shaw, Mookie Betts, and guys like that. And I had just watched a Jose Fernandez outing, and I was so hyped. And I never warmed up because I was a guy who liked to save bullets. If you've seen any of these other episodes, I saved my bullets. I didn't want to warm up, none of that stuff. But I quickly learned from this outing, hey, you know what? Let's go out and let's just let it rip and see what happens. My velocity was up that game. My breaking ball was not what my usual breaking ball was doing, and I had guys swinging and missing, and it was something that it kind of was an eye-opening moment for me. So number one, you want to make sure you have the intent to throw hard, but you also want to have the intent to throw strikes. So we're trying to throw hard and throw strikes. I'm not just saying go out there and just let it rip and not know where the ball's going. We're throwing at a target, but you're looking at that target and you're trying to fire through. A lot of pitchers, including myself, a lot of times you get into the pattern of throwing to the target. You want to throw the ball through the catcher. If the catcher was just not going to catch it, that thing should, hit the backstop, all right, as a strike. That should be your goal. You don't want to throw to the catcher. You want to throw it through his mitt. And you'll start to see some different results there. And Mo saying, Mo grew up throwing walnuts, crab apples, and rocks. It was a lie. He barely kept it in the stadium. I did break a guy's elbow. But, Mo, that was on purpose. That was the most accurate pitch I threw the whole year. I was trying to hit him because he stepped on TJ Baume at home. So you guys charged me. That was my first time I ever had to bean someone on purpose. And I was aiming right at his ribs, and he put his arm down. And that was the most accurate pitch I've ever thrown in my career. I ain't going to lie to you, Mo. But no, the other thing outside of the intent, because that's what really the Indians taught me, was like, hey, man, they had radar guns on me, pocket radars for that matter, in catch play. Now, that's not for everybody. I'm not saying everyone throw with a radar gun. But I'm just saying for someone who's struggling and, thinking, hey, I don't want to throw too hard, it might go somewhere, you're afraid of being wild if you throw hard, I think you have to practice it. And if you don't have a throwing partner that can handle that, that's all right. Find a wall, find a net, and find a target on that net where you're able to look at that target, focus in, and just freaking let it eat at that target. Because I think the best way to learn pitching is to throw at a target, as hard as you can or close to it. You know, Mo might disagree. He was a little bit different pitcher than me, who threw a complete game shutty against, you know, SEC schools. But, man, I can't stress it enough. So have the intent to throw hard, be free, be an athlete. Because I've mentioned this before, I was a slave to fear of, you know, being laughed at and, you know, not throwing the ball with control. And it doesn't do anything for you. Because if you're not having confidence and you're not having the intent to throw strikes and hard, it's not going to work anyways. So, and the other thing I want to, you know, that I was kind of alluding to was, you know, being free and being an athlete. Most of the people, I would envy them, man. I would envy them. And this sounds arrogant, but I was more talented than a lot of pitchers. But they were throwing, you know, in games, and they were throwing strikes, and they were getting guys out because it's baseball. And when you throw strikes, you force the hitter to throw or to hit, and when the hitters hit, it's hard. So they're going to get out 70% of the time, up to 75%. So you got to take those odds. You don't want to just let people on like I was doing. So being free and working on the ability to throw strikes and not worry about the worst case scenario, because those things, you can't control those things. So for a quick review, 1, have intent to throw the ball hard. I said throw through your target, not to your target. And number 2, you got to be free, man. You got to be free and easy, and you got to be, you know, someone who isn't worried about, okay, I'm going to hurt my partner, or, you know, I'm going to throw at my partner's shins, or I'm going to hit the backstop, or, you know, I'm going to have hitters scared, because that can work in your favor. Trust me, I was effectively wild. But I think it's, you know, these two things, and I'll go into this deeper in another video, but I think those two things are what the kind of changed for me from leaving the Phillies and coming to the Indians. Literally, the first thing, they didn't let me on the mound for the first month. I was just long tossing and learning to be a good thrower. You know, shout out to Ken Knutson. He gave me a wristband that said, throw less, or throw more, pitch less. And, you know, those are things I live by today. I want to teach you how to be and when you come to my classes, I want to teach you how to be a good thrower. You know, and then we'll also talk about pitching and, you know, working in these counts and understand, you know, swing paths, and, you know, we'll get into that stuff too, but you need to be a good thrower to be healthy and to be effective when you're pitching. But that's another video as well. But I just want to make sure the two things: have intent to throw hard and hit a target, and number 2, just be free, man, and do not be a slave to fear and kind of hinder yourself. You know, I was frustrated my whole career, man, frustrated. But I hope, you know, these tips have helped you. I'm gonna go to the chat because, you know, we got someone in there. You know, we ain't used to this. But Mo's saying, yeah, this is true. You got your boys back. Of course I got TJ's back. You know what I'm saying? I had to have TJ's back, but it was hard. It was hard. And he said, no, let it eat, dog. I tell all my guys that. You can never be accurate throwing hard if you don't practice it. See, Mo, thank you. Thank you, Mo. Guys, if you're conserving your arm, not warming up correctly, afraid you're going to throw a ball, you're kind of just stabbing yourself in the foot, all right? You gotta let it eat, man. And, you know, I'm going to go into my velocity journey, but I just wanted to catch up to what Mo was saying. But back to what I said at the beginning. I was someone who was always gifted with a strong arm, and I always threw hard. I was always amongst the top in my area for velocity. I remember when I was 12, it was about, I was throwing around, you know, mid-60s. So we'll say 65, 68, around that time. And then 13, 14, we were in some tournaments in Columbus. And I think at States, when I was 14, I was throwing low to mid-80s. But you got to remember, mounds were closer then. Once I got to high school my freshman year, velocity went down because the mound, I went back to 60 feet, 6 inches. I think nowadays when you're 14, you're kind of back there already. But we were not back there already when I was at 14. But going into high school, I was low 80s again, and eventually, I think in high school I topped out at 94, but most of the time I was 88, 92, and I was a right-handed pitcher. Then once I joined Mo at Ball State, I was pretty much 92, 91, 92, 93-ish. And then I kind of broke out once my pitching coach played a joke on me. And I was still saving my bullets at that point. And he told me I wasn't supposed to pitch. So I was out there just firing and long tossing, and I was loose. I was letting it eat. And we're at Louisville, and they're ranked 7th in the nation, and they're like 17-0 at this point. And I wasn't thinking I was going in, so I was letting it eat. And then the coach was like, "Oh, hey, we're gonna put you in." And in my mind, I'm like, I just wasted all my bullets. Winning the game, was throwing 95, 98 with a mid-80s curveball that I've never seen before. And you would think I would learn to start letting it eat then, but that's kind of what got me drafted. That outing against Louisville, and I could tell you I wasn't trying to hold back to throw strikes. They had some big dudes in there. So, yeah, about that time, I topped out at 98. I think that was on the Detroit Tigers gun. I don't know if it was juiced, but I also had a lot of adrenaline because every pitch, all the radar guns were going up. And, my catcher, Zach Dygert, was giving me the sign to let it eat, too. So I had a different sign to just throw as hard as I could. So he was giving me that sign as well. So, good times. But once I got the pro ball, and I was having command issues, I was 90, 93 again, kind of dropped down. And it wasn't until, the Indians were like, man, and they put me in the bullpen, and they had me throwing from just the stretch, and they were just like, dude, you just gotta let it go. Be an athlete and fire that thing. And that's what I did, and that's why my channel is called 99 miles per hour, because in 2016, I was pretty much 96 to 99 consistently, and I was closer for the Rubber Ducks and the Columbus Clippers. And even though Bauer was, he was disappointed when I came up and didn't throw 99 when I made my debut, but we can't all be Aroldis Chapman. But so that's that story. That's my velocity journey. I was always throwing hard, but I progressed as I got up, and I played other sports. So I was lifting for football, which isn't always the best for baseball. I wasn't working on a lot of single leg stuff, but a lot of football lifting still got me stronger for baseball. And then when I got to college, I was playing football then. So I was doing college football workouts as well with a trainer who eventually went on to train the New York Giants. So I had a lot of grade A training, we'll say, that wasn't always specified for baseball, but in the end, it helped me a lot with baseball. Kept me strong, kept me healthy, and in the end, velocity just kept growing, but it didn't take that leap until those two things happened where I started to change my intent, where I stopped caring about, being pretty and throwing pitches on the corners and started just humming that thing in there, Yeah, Mo, a great environment added to it. Louisville was sick. Yes, it was. It was all turf field, a lot of scouts there. Our best player pitched before me, and he kind of set the scene up for me to come in, and it was good times, and that game basically got me drafted. So, but yeah, if you guys have any questions about velocity, we got young guys in my Discord already talking to me about, what can they do to improve their velocity? What can they do if they just started playing baseball? And I'm trying to answer those questions the best I can. I'm constantly researching and trying to come up with new information that can maybe help some people that weren't built like me or didn't have the genetics I have. And you have to, work your way up. But there's plenty of guys that can pitch in the league without throwing 95 plus. So it's always fun if you're throwing with intent and you're throwing free and you're out there letting it eat and it's 92, you're still good. Shane Bieber doesn't throw 95 plus and Cy Young winner. So I would encourage you guys to, stay within the journey. Make sure you crawl before you walk. and just learn as much as you can, man. I didn't have all these resources. Me and Mo didn't have these resources when we were coming up. So now we're just trying to, combine our knowledge with the resources we have these days. Now, this was a little bit longer of a stream, but I wanted to make sure I shared my thoughts on the two things that were important to me, the two adjustments I made, and also kind of talk about my velocity journey in my career from like 12 all the way up. So hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you in the next stream. Peace.